So, Gio, hey, how are you? How's it
Well,
going?
good morning. Doing well, thank you.
Good. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about what it's like working with me. So why don't you give us just a little bit of an introduction and what you do and maybe what your situation was when we first started working together?
Okay. Yeah, so my name is Gio DiFabio, and I work for a public agency, local government in the realm of transportation. Before you and I had started working together, I had recently completed a master's degree a couple of years ago, and then my employer had put me through an internal leadership academy. They kind of identify future leaders and give us kind of a toolkit what they expect from their leaders. I guess my biggest challenge coming into that was having all of the education and training, but I was kind of feeling like a bit like my position didn't really match the work that I was performing. And I had all these tools, but I was kind of lost on how to implement them on my
Mm.
goals.
Yeah, can you walk me through really what was happening for you? Like, what was it like on the ground?
I would say that I wasn't at a point where I was frustrated, but I kind of had a sense that I was performing at a higher position than what I was actually classified, officially. So
Mhm.
that doesn't feel great, but at the same time, it does feel good that I was able to take on those roles, but I didn't quite have the full knowledge of what it entailed to be at that higher position. So I had to kind of do some research surrounding that.
Yeah. So it sounds like you were feeling like maybe your work was not recognized as much as you would have liked. So how long were
Yeah.
you really in that situation?
I mean, I have been getting great uh performance reviews, so I didn't
Mhm.
feel a lack of recognition. I guess it was more on paper on my classification.
Okay.
And I love my job and I'm not doing it for the money, but everyone wants to be recognized in that sense as far as compensation and title. So I've essentially been in the same position for over 5 years, but at the same time, the scope of my position has kind of evolved and taking on higher level projects and things that I had a sense were actually things that my superiors would have on their plate rather than me at my position.
Got it. Okay. So what changed about your approach to your challenge from anything that you might have tried before?
Um, I I had mentioned and advocated for a classification study. I had also applied for another internal position. Neither of those were successful. The agency as a whole was talking about doing some classification studies, nothing directly involving me. And I got some great feedback when applying for that internal positions. I realized why I didn't get the position just because there was somebody that was directly in that line that had the exact experience, but I got a lot of positive feedback from that. And at the same time, I like the position and the work that I do currently. I left with that still feeling that I wasn't quite classified correctly. Yeah.
Okay. So what would have happened, do you think, if you and I had not worked together?
I think I would have continued to have been seen as just a worker bee, some that employee that does a good job and keeps the machine running well,
Mhm.
puts the oil in the right places and reduces problems from bubbling up to the higher level, right?
Mhm.
And that's not a bad place to be, but at the same time, I was also still feeling positive about my work. But I think what have happened is the executive staff would not have been informed regarding the scope of my work. So
Okay.
working through you, the agency actually did initiate a classification study for my position,
Nice.
and I don't think that they would have done that had you and I not worked together.
Mm.
That I asked some strategic and serious questions and approached them in a professional manner through meetings with kind of my questions and concerns and requests. And
Mhm.
they took my questions seriously and initiated a full classification study. And I don't think that would have happened as efficiently if I hadn't worked directly with you prior.
Mhm. Well, that's great because it sounds like it took it out of the immediate, and maybe even something a little bit vague or frustrating and brought it more to a strategic realm where you are set up really well for when those changes take place. So now it's on paper what you do and what level you're working at. Uh,
Yeah, correct. And so the classification study did identify several areas where I'm working not just one level above my position, but in some cases two, almost three levels above my position.
wow.
And the policy at my agency is you have to be closer to 50%, which they did not find. And so I think we're still working on some of those fine details, but it did kind of open their eyes a bit. And I think them seeing it on paper that I'm already doing a significant amount of higher level work, when that position does become open, or there is another opportunity, they'll have that confidence to know that I've already been, introduced to that type of work and completed it successfully.
Great, great.
Yeah.
So oftentimes clients wonder what's the difference between working with a live coach and really partnering and let's say going through a leadership program or reading books or, chat GPT, that kind of thing. So what was
Yeah.
the difference for you?
For me, I'm not a big reader, but I do use ChatGPT. And I'd also, I had been through a leadership course as part of my master's degree. And my organization put me through their internal leadership program. And like I said before, I had all these tools and a giant toolbox of how to be a leader and how to be effective and how to speak to people and relate to people and how to motivate people. But one of the things that I didn't get from all of that was how to implement it and being strategic and setting yourself up for a personal growth plan or setting your subordinates up for a better growth plan. And as for AI and ChatGPT, it's a good product, and it's very useful in some types of research. But I absolutely would not rely on AI to give me any advice on navigating any type of complex relationship, especially when your career depends on it. Because I think when you're leaving subjective decisions up to AI and it's a product that is designed to give you answers that you want, when it goes into something that's ambiguous, it kind of hypes you up and gets your expectations a little bit higher than reality. And working with you, you're able to look at it from several angles and bring everything back down to earth and say, well, maybe that's not quite the most feasible route, or maybe that's going a little bit too far because
Mhm.
AI doesn't really have a sense of the human connection and
Mm,
things that will, you know, for lack of a better word, tick off your boss.
yeah.
It's good for some things, but not for developing personal development plans or any other type of relationship.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, it's a big risk to take when your career is on the line.
Yeah.
So, what would you say to somebody who's on the fence about coaching and trying to decide whether they want to invest in it or not?
Just like the gaining knowledge through courses and things like that, this is also a valuable tool, and it's an investment just like any tool. And, it's designed to help you complete what you're trying to accomplish. But the difference is working through something with somebody in another perspective with has a professional experience working through these helps you hone in what you're trying to accomplish, right? And I've learned so much from you, and you've helped me develop intricate details and responses that I wouldn't have been able to come up with on my own. And just through our sessions and hammering through the scenarios and the information, and then finally deciding on a course of action. And you could do that on yourself, but it's so much better when you have a professional who's been through it before, who's like, well, that may not be the best approach. And you've really helped me, focus and, develop that course of action. And, it's a time investment and a cost investment, but totally worth it. I would say that coaching in general should be mandatory for any professional that's having issues navigating their current situation or wants to try to climb, within an organization or even, you know, move on to bigger and better pastures and reach their goals. And I think it's a small investment, for your future because there's so much that you can bring to the table for people that it's well worth it.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for your time today. I really appreciate it. And it's been a joy working with you. So, yeah, Thanks, Gio.